Good morning, esteemed panelists, invited guests, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. My name is Omasan Ugisi, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome you on behalf of MTN to the ninth session in the Revv Programme Masterclass series. The Revv Programme is one of MTN's Give Back initiatives. It was established to provide support for SMEs as they relearn, rethink, and retool their businesses for growth during and after the COVID pandemic. The program, which, as I've mentioned, is specifically designed for SMEs, consists of masterclasses, marketing and productivity support, as well as advisory services. And so far, we are gratified to have been able to host 8 highly engaging masterclasses with over 6,000 participants and more than 1,000 questions asked. It's been amazing. The level of engagement has been humbling, and I must say that we are grateful to you today for your participation and for welcoming our contribution towards empowering SMEs on their journey of economic growth. Today's theme is the resilient small business, a stakeholder and crisis management perspective, which is a very apt topic for our present times. Crises can teach us a number of things. In a crisis, we discover new ways of doing things. We find courage to do things we didn't know we had. And we discover that the seemingly impossible is possible after all. Which brings to mind a quote often attributed to Charles Darwin, that it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent. It is the one most adaptable to change. But crisis can also be devastating, which means the difference is how resilient your business is and how prepared you are to handle a crisis before it occurs. Our esteemed panelists today are going to do justice to this topic and share with us ways SMEs can build resilience, identify and manage stakeholder priorities, as well as look at recovery strategies in the aftermath of a crisis. Now, let me introduce our moderator for the day, Amina Mbata. My sister, Amina, is a graduate of economics and an MBA holder from Bayero University, Kano. She started her career in banking, where she rose to the level of an assistant manager before moving to telecoms, when she joined MTN. She became the first national operations manager for the North, where she oversaw the establishment of service centers in Kaduna, Kano, and Sokoto. Amina rose to senior manager for the Eastern region, where she oversaw the regional distribution and operations. She then moved to Sudan on secondment as a consultant, and there she worked on restructuring of their distribution channels. Following that, she returned as a senior manager for Lagos Southwest region, and then moved back to the North in the same capacity. In 2017, Amina became the general manager for regional operations North, where she is saddled with driving revenue and market share in the region. Amina has participated in several successful projects, transforming our frontline structure, providing efficient services to customers, all sorts of things. She's involved in the transformation of our distribution channels, winning back over 500 million customers under threat of deactivation. Amina is also an alumni of INSEAD Business School. She has attended several sales and leadership courses in Lagos Business School, Cranfield University, and so on. As you can tell, Amina is a little bit of an overachiever. You're welcome, Amina. I would like to remind us all that we have masterclasses every week, and all those who have registered will receive emails and SMS reminders to join. To register for our program or previous sessions, please visit our website, which is www.mtnbusiness.com.ng/Revv Programme. And before I leave, I'd like to thank you once again for joining us today. We look forward to a very engaging session. Amina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Omasan. I would like to start by saying welcome to all our participants online, everybody who has logged in this morning to listen to us. Amasan, you said this is the ninth out of the series we started, right? And I can tell you that it has been excitement all the way. And today we are proud to bring you a topic that is very dear, I'm sure, on everybody's mind, especially coming out of the pandemic. And businesses are struggling and some have even gone down. So it would be nice to listen to specialists to tell us how do we remain resilient. Because if there's anything Nigerians are, that is the species that we are. We are very resilient and we always rejuvenate, and we also change and become something better. So I'm very happy today to have on as a panelist 5 distinguished lady and gentlemen who have wealth of experience. And I want to assure you that today is going to be a roller coaster ride that you would wish you would never be off. In no particular order, I would like to introduce the panelists to you. And I'm going to start with my sister, Nkechi. Okay, don't say I'm being female chauvinist. So, well, Nkechi Ali Balogun, very interesting because she has all the names coming from all parts of Nigeria. She is one of the leading public relations officer in Nigeria with a wealth of over 25 years of professional experience in client services and training consultancy. She is currently a principal consultant with NECCI Consulting. She has been at the forefront of building capacity and indulged in design and delivery of management public relations strategies, which has led to her whole position of chairperson, Nigeria Institute of PR, Lagos. She is a woman who has bagged so many awards. And just to mention a few of them, she is the first female to receive the prestigious PR Golden Eagle Award as the most outstanding public relation practitioner from Lagos State in 2010 and in 2011. She is also one of the recipients of the Red Media Living Legend Industry Award in recognition of her outstanding contributions to the media industry in West Africa in 2015. In 2018 again, she was honored with the coveted African Women Leaders Organization Award as the Phenomenal Woman. Same year, she also bagged the Female Public Relations Personality of the Year by NIMCA, a fellow member of the Governing Council of Nigeria Institute of Public Relations and senior member of the PR Association. Nkechi, you are welcome to this program.
Thank you very much, Amina.
All right, good. The next I have on the panel is Mr. Bankole, Mr. Peter Bankole. Mr. Bankole is a director, Enterprise Development Center, Pan-African University, which he pioneered this department in 2003. He has capacity responsible for the overall, he acts in the capacity responsible for the overall program development of capacity building and support services to entrepreneurs and students across the university. It's going to play out during this session. You would see where his support, where it has led to. There's a story to this, so I'll come back to this. Just pen it down. He's a mechanical engineer by training, but has over 36 years of consultancy experience in both the public and the private sector. He initiated and led several partnership programs, such as the World Bank, Federal Government of Nigeria, and a host of other large corporates and SMEs. He consults widely in sub-Saharan Africa on the entrepreneurial development and practice. He led the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Women Initiative in Nigeria and was also a consultant on the project to Liberia. He currently chairs a lot of boards, which includes the board of Nigeria Climate Innovation Center, International Breweries Foundation. Mr. Bankole, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Amina, for having me this morning.
So you're still at Oshodi, I could see that.
Yes, I'm still at Oshodi, as you can see.
Okay, thank you. The next that I have is Tobechukwu Okigbe, one of us, my brother. He's a lawyer by training with over 13 years of professional experience in the legal and telecom sector. He is currently the Chief Corporate Relations Officer with MTN. He worked as a legal counsel and as a consultant to the federal government, an advisor and consultant to businesses, and a political editor for a newspaper. He's a certified resolution professional from the Center for Effective Dispute Resolution, United Kingdom, was part and led the team that set up the Abuja multi-door courthouse. He joined the telecom sector. He's worked in various capacities in various companies in 2005, where he served as a legislative officer and rose to lead government and environmental affairs. He's reputed for exemplary work ethic, leads the company's strategic approach towards enhancing her corporate reputation, particularly engaging and managing critical stakeholders. I can bet you he's doing a very good job there. In addition, projecting MTN's corporate citizenship status. Mr. Okigbe, Tobe, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. It's my privilege to be here.
And I have also the privilege to introduce to you somebody I admire, somebody through the crisis of the pandemic and lockdown I got to know. He's no other than Prince Arthur Uche. Prince Arthur is the CEO and Managing Director of Beyond Clothing. It's a company that was founded in 2006 and based in Aba. He's a lawyer by training, and he practiced law for just a year after his NYSC. And he ventured into his passion, which is fashion and garment production. Since 2007, when the company was launched, he has built a team of young and vibrant people who, through their initiatives and resilience, have grown from a small business size of just 2 employees to a business with a workforce of over 140 employees. They're based in Aba, but they have a retail store in Lagos, and their customers spread across every nook and cranny of Nigeria. There's a story around him. If you remember the lockdown and the PPEs and the jumpsuits that were scarce, that was what he ventured into. But I think it's his story to tell. Prince, it's an honor to have you here, for me to see you face to face and to speak with you. And I'm sure a lot of Nigerians would also be happy to hear from you. You're welcome on board, Prince.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be on board.
Thank you. The last that we have as the panelist is no other than our own Cyril Ilok. Cyril is the Chief Risk and Compliance Officer in MTN Nigeria, a position he assumed in 2018. He has spent over 22 years in MTN in different capacities in the internal audit, process audit, and enterprise risk management. Prior to joining MTN, he has served as an internal controller manager in a bank. He's a fellow of both Institute of Chartered Accountants, that is ICANN, and Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, CITN, and a certified member of Institute of Risk Management, United Kingdom, Certified Compliance and Ethics Officer, United States, and also an Ethic Institute in South Africa, respectively. Cyril, you're welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Amina. My pleasure to be here.
Okay, so these are the panelists, and we're going to spend an hour. We're going to also entertain questions from you. So we'll have an opportunity to pose questions. And I would like to start with you, Cyril, because the topic is about resilience. The topic is about how to survive in tough times. And we're just coming out of the pandemic, where we came out of the lockdown. Some businesses have gone down and some have been resilient. Now, typically, business risk assessment processes should be responsive to changes in the business environment. Having a robust process that identifies and prioritizes the critical enterprise, including emerging risks. Now, so what are the step-by-step risk management? Is there a process approach for the SMEs that should incorporate into their businesses to properly put that structure in place?
Okay, thank you, Amina. That's a very good question. Good morning, everyone. I think it's very important to realize that if you do not have a structure for risk management as an organization, it's very difficult to navigate through the pandemic. We are not out yet of the pandemic, we are still there. So it's important to realize that it's never too late to start. Even if the views I'm going to share may not have been considered by a lot of our SMEs, you will still find time to definitely make use of these tips. So I would like to start by saying that it is important to have a governance structure that your company that guides your company's activities. We've over the past 8 weeks or so have had discussions around sales, around marketing, around production, around all aspects of the business. But that can actually disappear overnight if you do not have a robust structure for managing the risk that the organization faces from time to time. So as is always said, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the next best time is now. So it's never too late to start. I'd like to start with the structure of governance of a company. What structure do you have in place to run your organization? Do you have those you look up to as advisors? Do you have a board of directors, for instance? And I realize that these are small organizations, so you may not necessarily go into the details of such. What is important to have set clear objectives with respect to what you're doing. Do you have a management structure? Do you have a policy in place, for instance, that governs how you do things in the organization? You must have artifacts that direct what you do. Do you have a staff code of conduct? Even if you have a staff strength of maybe 2 to 10 to 20 staff, or like my panel colleague here has over 100 staff, you will need a code of conduct to govern the operations of that company. Do you have a delegation of authority matrix, for instance? If you are not in the office, who takes the critical decisions that you have to? So when you have organized all this, you definitely have a plan that you have to execute. Have you set your objectives? Are these objectives written down somewhere? So when you've set this context, it becomes easy for you to see where you're going to, and as such, to be able to set up structures in place to identify those risks. So I'll just run through a very brief process of risk identification that will be relevant to our SME organization. So the first thing you do is set your objectives, as I said earlier. So if you have established those objectives, then you will now step back to determine what are the things that could stop me from achieving these objectives. Okay, you have to identify those risks. And this is a process you can pretty much do with your staff directly, or you bring in 1 or 2 people that could help you from outside the organization, just to look at what you're doing, to make sure that you've thought through everything and you've documented those, and then you have a plan that addresses those risks. So that takes us to the point of risk identification. So you have established your objectives, you have set up your business plans, then you have to identify the risks that threaten those business plans. Through brainstorming, you can put your colleagues in a room, you brainstorm. Those in sales will bring ideas, those in technology will bring ideas, those in marketing will bring ideas, and you come up with a simple document that we call a risk register. Okay? That risk register is a compendium of all the risks you have identified that threaten your objectives. Remind you, your eyes must focus on the ball, which are your objectives that you've set to achieve. So once you do that, you begin to identify which are the risks that are, let me say, heavier than the others, or more threatening of your objectives than the others. You will rank those first, and those are the ones you focus on. The ones that are not so much important, you relegate them to the background, even though your eyes will be on them, but your focus should be on the high risk that threaten your organization. So once you have done that, you now step back again to ask yourself, what do I need to do in order to mitigate this risk? Now, I give you a small example. I know that a lot of us, in the SME organization, are involved in, sourcing inputs from abroad, for instance. And we all know as Nigerians what we are going through with respect to foreign exchange supplies. So that is just an example of one risk that may threaten your entire value chain in terms of production and meeting your demands, the demands for your products. So if you've got inputs, for instance, from abroad that you do not have foreign exchange to source, how do you resolve that? And that shouldn't come to you as a surprise. So you have to constantly scan around your environment to see policies that are coming up that threaten your very existence. So for instance, are your inputs part of the list of products that are prohibited by the CBN? If that is the case, what are the alternatives that you've got? So that is, a constant exercise that you have to undertake to make sure that you remain relevant. You must also find alternatives. So if you cannot get Forex through CBN, what other options do you have? Do you have a business, for instance, that earns you Forex? So these are the kind of things you bring to the fore. And by the time you put all this together, you'll be able to determine what steps you need to take to make sure that, you remain relevant. Like you said earlier, there are a lot of businesses that probably wouldn't open again after this pandemic. But I don't want one of us to be part of those businesses. It is not wishful thinking. You have to deliberately plan to make sure that you have taken steps to identify all the risks that threaten your existence, and then you put in place plans, practical plans, by the way, and legal plans that will, enable you to manage those risks and manage you back to profitability. I'll just, summarize it in that sense. Thank you, Amina.
Thank you very much, Cyril. Wow, you've given like 7 steps in the 2 minutes that you spoke. So in a nutshell, what you've said is it's never too late to start. I mean, having a governing structure, having a deliberate plan in place that you would, and it's a live document. It's a document that you go back and you always revisit it. So if anything changes within the environment, because we live in an environment that constantly changes, then that would also serve as a referral point to go back to. Now, generally speaking, when crisis hits you, you can get flooded with requests for information. I mean, your credibility would even be tested. And to show that you are in control of the situation, you have to be ready. Now, Ms. Nkechi, you have been in the public relations space, and you have also been a consultant to a lot of small and large organizations and even government. What are the important tips in creating crisis communication plan? Let's say crisis happens. What are the tips that we need to take out? You need to be unmuted. Okay, while we wait for Nkechi, I think I'll move to the next.
Sorry, my something was just refusing to unmute. I'm sorry.
Okay,
Thank you, Amina, and thank you, MTN, for having me. I was just saying that it looks like Cyril and I have almost the same template, because a crisis is a risk. Crisis is a major risk that everybody is afraid of. But the interesting thing is that it can be managed. Unfortunately, small businesses don't always prepare for crisis. But the best way to manage crisis is to get ready for crisis. And in getting ready for crisis is to, like Cyril said, you must have a structure in place. And that part of that structure is having a crisis communication plan. And in your crisis communication plan, you must be able to identify people who will be able to speak and the kind of things you want to do during crisis. So you must have a crisis communication team. which will include spokesperson, media person. And then I know that in small businesses, the CEO might be all in all. If you are the all in all, then you must also have all these things in place. You must name a spokesperson, and that spokesperson must know every detail concerning your organization. You don't necessarily have to be the spokesperson. The spokesperson must be somebody who can communicate, somebody who can talk well, somebody who can talk proactively, somebody who knows what the problem is, somebody who also understands the business, somebody who knows the environment, who has been able to scan the environment and is able to analyze the environment in such a way that he can balance whatever the issues are with the organization, and also be able to bring about some understanding from the society. Then it is always good for you to anticipate crisis. A lot of us always, especially these days of not my portion, not this, it won't happen to me. But crises do happen. I can tell you for free that it does happen, and it can happen to anyone. You identify your stakeholders. Their stakeholders are very, very key when you're having crisis. And you must be able to prioritize your stakeholders because they have different interests when it comes to crisis. There could be the stakeholder that's more interested in whether whatever is going on is going to affect profit or going to affect policy, So your stakeholders have different interests, and so you must prioritize them and find a way of making sure that you communicate to them either individually or by mail, but you must keep them abreast of what is going on. And you must educate and train everybody involved, from your gatesman. One mistake that people make during managing crisis, especially especially SMEs. You see, why companies like MTN can survive any crisis. For small SMEs, a little crisis like that can remove you out of business. And your driver, your gatesman, might even be the one that will fuel the crisis. So you must put them in the know, and then let people know the truth. Don't hide the truth from the public. Don't hide the truth from your consumers. Always state the facts. Then establish monitoring and alert systems. Okay, what do I mean by this? Crisis is going on. You are sending out messages out there. Who is following up to know whether your messages are going out or not? And what are the reactions? What are the responses of people? Because based on these responses, it will help you also to know your next line of action. And in today, where we have citizen journalists, don't ignore the social media. The social media is critical in managing crisis today. In my time when we were growing up, we used to talk of the golden hour. Today, there's no golden hour. We're talking about maybe the second hour. All right, some of those files that you thought you were hiding is already on social media. Somebody has taken it. Anybody can generate content today. So you must have somebody, part of that, your team, dedicated to social media, monitoring what is being said in social media, and being able to provide facts all the time. Deal with facts. Deal with facts. Of course, there are people that are going to be adding 1 and 1 to make 10. But somebody must be on ground to make sure that you counter any negative reports, any negative content that are being generated. Then you must assess every risk potential and know how you want to manage them. Crisis in itself is not something that you want to run away completely from, because sometimes it helps you to know where you're not doing well. But once you put all these things in place, I am sure you'll be able to manage your crisis. But the most important thing in managing crisis is making sure you get ready for it before it comes. Therefore, you must know the early warning signs. Those early warning signs, you must articulate them and make sure you have a plan B. You know something you are going to do when such things happen. Some of those early warning signs, like serious, could be staff attrition. It could be the rate of dollar going so high, depending on your company. Know those early warning signs, prepare for them, and then you're good to go. Thank you very much. I think I'll stop here for now.
Thank you so much, Nkechi. I mean, you've said a lot. Crisis is a risk. Absolutely. I mean, nobody envisages it when it comes, in what form it's going to come. And every crisis has its own. Some can be locally instigated. For instance, what comes to my mind, if you all remember what is fresh now, Starbucks, when they refused to serve a Black person, there was some race in that story, and it became viral. Now, the first thing the organization did was to speak, was to communicate. And we had a similar case with Domino's Pizza some years back, not in Nigeria, of course, a lot of years back, where the staff wanted to get back at the company and they spat into the food. They did all sorts of nuisance with the food, and then videotaped it, and then they sent it out. Now, the company's ability to, they didn't respond on time. So people now believe in that story. So your ability, your capacity to come out and speak about it, you have to have a communication. You have to always be ready and have a structure in place that would address crises when they happen, because they can come in any form. Now, we have seen businesses thrive and some of them fail. So, Mr. Bankole, this is to you. Being a pioneer of the Enterprise Development Center, are there any systematic forces outside of the control of the SMEs that you have identified in your experience? And how do you think these systematic issues is being addressed either by government or the private sector?
Thanks a lot, Amina, and thank you, the audience. Now, there are quite a lot when it comes to the external things to the small businesses that we have seen that can actually consume or, in fact, dissolve, their businesses. I've written about this severally, and I put it in a framework called the Misfit framework. But today, I'm just going to segregate them into the two buckets of government and also of private sector. So for government, for instance, we need to look at things like infrastructure. Today, infrastructure is making the small businesses in Nigeria to be at least 30% not competitive. And so it makes it difficult for them to sell beyond the shores of Nigeria. Government can do something about that. And when I say infrastructure, power alone is more than 50% of that bucket. Now, the issue of taxes is also another one that government can look at, because it's also beyond the capacity of small businesses. And taxes comes in various ways. In fact, we used to joke about it that there are 39 types of taxes ranging from local to state to federal that small business have to battle with. Some of them they don't even know until they are issued the warrant. So that needs to be harmonized, and then so long as the small businesses know what has to be paid, then it is easier to plan for it. Again, that speaks to what Cyril was talking about around risk, because you are planning for something else, then you get slammed by the tax authority. Finance, access to finance is also another. When small businesses grow to a particular point that is beyond the initial capital that they have, then they must have access to capital. And usually it's a government-enabled one, or what we call the patient type of capital at the beginning. You will see that during the COVID period and post-COVID, federal government has been, through NISOR, have been doing a lot around financing small businesses in this area. This has to be structured and institutionalized. But in all of this, the one that is even critical as far as government is concerned is what we call the almighty security. No business can thrive when the environment is not secure. Security of lives and property. And this is the exclusivity of government. Once they are able to do that, then it is easier for businesses to worry about those internal stuff. But when it comes to the private sector, there are some of the things that may be in the purview of government, but then they also have a way of helping or assisting to groom, make the small businesses to thrive. For instance, in the last 10 years or so, I have seen the private sector come in the area of discovery of talents and innovation. And so we do a lot of competition, and those competition will throw up small businesses that have innovative ideas. And hopefully we may have time to say that. But more importantly, we are also having some of the financial institutions creatively financing small businesses today. Access to market is critical. Even if you do not have access to finance, if you do have access to market, then finance will always follow you. Of course, one critical part that private sector can play, and indeed have been playing, though in a limited way, is providing support services to small businesses. So either by mentoring, counseling, and so on and so forth. But finally, to talk around risk is it's around insurance. And insurance goes both ways. First, the government can indeed help small businesses or provide some kind of framework that makes small businesses to insure. Now, you insure against so many things. Whether you are carrying your goods from point A to point B, you can do goods in transit insurance. You insure against fire and theft and all kinds of stuff. That means that even when some type of disaster strikes, you are still able to get on your feet very quickly. And so, I mean, in most developed economies, you cannot even open a restaurant if it's not insured. And it's insured against so many things. In the same way, small businesses need to know that for business survival and continuity, insurance needs to play a game. So this will be my opening shot around what government and private sector could do based on what we have been learning. Thank you, Amina.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bankole. That was very interesting. We've had other classes before this one, and there was a class particularly on finance that talked about access to finance. So I hope that most of our SMEs online today were able to join that. And if not, it's still available on YouTube, and we can still go back and learn from that. Now we have over 500, close to 600 in just 30 minutes of participants. Well done to all of you. And I would like to share the poll result that we just pulled out. We had two questions for the audience: who currently manages the risks within your business? And 67% of the participants says the chief executive officer, and 22% says everyone, while 11% says the risk management function. I believe after the discussion in the first half from listening to the three panelists, we should have a mind change, because we've learned that there's a process. We learned that there are people responsible for managing this. Now, going to the next question: how do you currently communicate with your stakeholders in times of crisis? 11% say, I hire a PR consultant to do the communication, while 26% says, refer to the policy documents addressing the issues, and 80% say, call involved parties to a roundtable discussion. I think we would take some learnings from here that talks about we need to have a deliberate structure. And we also need to have a communication plan in times of crisis. Now, we've heard about crisis and the toll it has on some of the businesses. Some have to make rapid changes in the workplace, ranging from reorganization to further reductions in the work forces. So Toby, having been a consultant and also a lawyer and somebody who works with the government and understands stakeholder management, how can I manage, or what can we tell the SMEs or how to manage this recovery phase of crisis to strengthen the overall connection with the employees?
Amina, thank you very much. Like I said, it's my privilege to be here. Now, Cyril has given clearly what risks exist in times of crisis, and other panelists have spoken to how to communicate, how governments can help and all that. The first thing I want to put on the table is most of us, when we speak, we are referencing organizations that are structured. And when you speak to it that way, somebody who is an SME might get the impression that this does not refer to me. I think it was Ram Charan who stated that when you pare away everything around the business, it's about cash. So the relationship, what you see happening at an MTN, a multi-trillion naira organization, is probably the same thing from a management point of view with what happens with that woman who is down the road and is selling akara. In the same way, when you discuss stakeholder management, the same things that agitate the minds of an organization as big as an MTN are the same things that should agitate the minds of anybody who is in business, no matter how small they are. So from a stakeholder management point of view, what I think small businesses should do is to understand their environment, because the more you understand your environment, the better you are able to respond to crisis. Like the poll questions you put across where people are saying they have a structure. If you have a structure, that is well and good. If you do not have a structure, it does not mean that not having a policy or a structure as an MTN will have it means that you should be disadvantaged and you should not be able to manage crisis. So let me put this in perspective. As COVID-19 was going on, a lot of organizations had to retool, rethink, re-strategize, and come back even better than they were before the COVID. So a few examples. We know that restaurants, for example, shut down and people couldn't go and sit down and eat. What did the restaurateurs do? What they did was that they started delivering. They started reaching out to their customers. Now they're able to do those things because they are close to their customers and they know what their customers need. So what I would suggest is the first thing is you need to understand your stakeholders. So from a mapping point of view, who are your stakeholders? Your customer is your stakeholder. Your employees, if you have them, are your stakeholders. Government is an important stakeholder. And this speaks to what Peter Bamkole was talking about when he mentioned access to finance and mentioned things like harmonizing taxes. So it's easier for the small business owner to abide by what the rules are. When you have mapped your stakeholders, the next thing you need to do is to understand what drives them, what moves them, what it is they want out of your business. When you understand it, the next thing you need to do is to balance those needs. Okay, so balancing those needs also entails knowing, for example, that this is what my customers need and this is how I can supply them. And on the other hand, knowing clearly that these are the imperatives from government and I have to find a way to balance the needs of my customer and what government expects of me from an obeying regulation point of view, for example, and from paying taxes point of view. If you are well versed and you are communicating, as Nkechi said, with your stakeholders, having mapped them, okay, it is easier for you to retool. It is easier for you to change direction, to start saying, okay, this is what I need to do now that I am in a crisis. First is that from a legal point of view, you're clear. Okay, these are the laws I need to obey. This is extremely critical. And if you know your stakeholders enough and you're paying attention, the chances are that if those laws are going to change, you will have a bit of a view before it happens. If you have a view before it happens, which is why you need to stay close to your stakeholders, then you will be able to say, okay, these laws are going to change. How does it impact my business? And you can think about it. If you focus on communications again, if you look at the social media and you know how trends are going, you can quickly say, okay, this is where it's going and this is how I can retool. So at every level, understanding your stakeholders helps you manage the crisis as it develops. If we take an example again, during this crisis, young people couldn't go to clubs because of social distancing. Things like owners started coming up with things like drive-in clubs. There was one that was held at TBS, where people would drive in, stay in their cars, music would play, and there's social distancing, and there is fun going on, and whoever is organizing it was making money. Now, the person that did this organization was a small business owner, so to speak, because he's a club owner. And a lot of them have transitioned in this way. So you see that what is going on when there's a risk is understand your stakeholders, understand their needs, work within the confines of the crisis that you've seen. In this case, it's the pandemic. It can be any other crisis, okay? And then use that stakeholder understanding that you have to meet the needs of your customers, okay? So that is the advice I would give at the moment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tobe. You've spoken around this stakeholder organization. So stakeholder management is not just for the big organization, but it's even for the small organizations. In fact, even at the home front, we always manage our stakeholders. We just need to identify who they are and understand what their needs are, and then we provide it. And you rightly mentioned during the crisis, I mean, something happened that we never thought could happen in Nigeria. Home delivery, food, fresh food, things you could never think could be delivered right to your doorstep. I'm somebody who doesn't like to go to the market. Groceries, fresh, were being delivered. And the social media became a very, very powerful tool for people to latch onto. So understanding that stakeholder and what they require, that is very key in running our businesses. Now, coming to the reality, I mean, managing the businesses and the experiences. I would like to now turn my spotlight onto Prince Arthur. Now, you have been running your business for about 13 years and have built a strong brand. More often, small businesses owners are advised to have an accountant, a lawyer, and now we're hearing to have a risk management team, a PR team on their team. But there is rarely mention about the support networks you need during crisis to keep you focused and motivated. How do you establish a strong support system to enable you succeed? Prince Arthur? Okay, I believe there are some technical.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, yes, we can hear you now, Prince.
Okay. Do I respond to your question? What was that question? I didn't get it very well. Hello,
Okay,
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Prince. Based on your experience of running your business for about 13 years, we wanted to know what kind of support network one would need during crisis to keep you focused and motivated. Because we've heard here that we are advised to get accountants, lawyers, risk officers. So how do you establish a strong support system needed to succeed? How did you do that?
Well, from my experience, what I'm going to say is that the growth or death of every small business is dependent on the manager who is managing this business. How is your psychological makeup like? Are you strong mentally to be able to stand when there's crisis? Will you give away whatever business you're doing to crisis? Because as it were, there's this Chinese definition of what crisis is. And they say that the crisis means, crisis has two definitions. One is danger, and then the other one is opportunity. So when crisis come, what do you see? Do you see danger? Do you see the destruction of your business, or do you see opportunity? Well, my experience was, for COVID experience was, I had just rented a store in Lagos when Corona visited Nigeria, and were devastated extremely devastated when Corona came to Nigeria and then they now proclaimed a lockdown. Our rent was running, we're out of business, our employees were hungry, we couldn't pay salaries anymore, and some of our customers were telling us, oh, stop delivery, you know, we can't take clothes this period, nobody's interested in clothes, nobody wants to wear clothes, you know, when all we're talking about is food, you know, how to survive the lockdown. So it was a major crisis for us, a massive crisis for us as a business, because we saw our revenue disappear in one day, we saw our business disappear. So we had to retool. We had to think about, how do we survive? Because I was more concerned, not just about how do we survive, how do we even survive after the business? If you don't take care of your employees during this pandemic, will they be there for you after the lockdown? That was my concern. So I had to think, and my thinking is this, and this is my advice to every entrepreneur, every business person, is that look out for problems. If you want to see opportunities, look out for problems and look for solutions. So every day I will read on YouTube, on the internet, on the television, how all over the world there's scarcity of PPE for medical health practitioners, for caregivers, how the supply chain has been devastated, how people were getting infected because there were no PPEs around. That was where I saw my opportunity. I said, come, people are looking for PPE. What if I can make this PPE? I mean, it's something close to my industry. It's possible we could do it. So I started researching on what truly constitutes a PPE. How do you manufacture a PPE? What kind of fabric do you need? So I went on the internet and I started doing a lot of research. I started asking a lot of questions. And before you knew it, we had tried this, tried that, went to some doctors, went to some hospitals, showed them what we do, and asked them, do you think this thing truly protects? And so they gave us a guideline and say, why don't you test this? Why don't you test your fabric this way, test it this way, and then bring it back. So we did a lot of testing, and eventually they said, oh, this thing works. I remember we also had another problem. There was a dislodgement of the supply chain. So getting the correct fabric was a bit difficult. So we had to innovate with what was readily available. And so we used what we could find around and came up with what was acceptable. And before you knew it, it opened up a massive business for us, massive business. In less than 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we grew from a company that used to employ 70 people to a company that at that time was employing like 140 people. It wasn't just about the fact that we're employing people. We're making a lot of meaning in people's life. We're adding value. So we're getting calls from all over Nigeria. We're getting calls from all over the world. People wanted PPE. People wanted to buy. People wanted to, in fact, I had situations where people would say, look, I'm going to send money into your account now. I'm sending money now. I need this thing. You must give me. And I say, we don't have enough of this. Please don't send your money. You know, if you can wait on the line, we'll eventually get to you. And that was how we did not survive. We thrived during the pandemic, during the lockdown, because we saw a problem and we preferred solution. Now, for every businessman, and I'll tell you this, for you to survive as a businessman, you must not see yourself as somebody who sells sugarcane, or somebody who sells clothes, or somebody who sells MTN recharge card, or somebody who sells banana, or whatever it is that your merchandise is. See yourself as an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs solve problems. Entrepreneurs look out for problems and prefer solutions. If your mindset is channeled in that direction, that look, I'm programmed to solve problems, I am programmed to solve problems, then that is when you begin to see opportunities. And when you see these opportunities, gather all the resources that you need to solve them. Look for people to back you up. Ask questions. Let me tell you something. Do you know it is better to be dumb and come up with a product that is not so perfect than wait until you have a very perfect product? Be dumb about it. Look for solution, look for product, look for how you can innovate, and you will survive. You will not only survive, you will thrive. Another thing I want to tell people is that whenever you come up with a product, people should know about it. People should know that you have a solution. So in our own case, we used a lot of the resources that we could find around us, which was the internet. So we came up with videos, we came up with flyers to tell Nigerians, oh, we're here, we have the solution to offer. No matter how good your product is, if you don't talk about it, there will never be any sales for you. You will not make progress. So in Beyond Clothing, we have this program where we set aside a certain percentage of our income for marketing, for advertising. No small business is too small to advertise. I see what MTN do all over Nigeria, and I'm amazed sometimes. I'm like, do they need to advertise? For goodness sake, we know about MTN. We see MTN everywhere. I use MTN. Why bother advertise? I mean, you don't need that. But they spend millions and probably billions bombarding us with advert. I have seen that in my business that it works. So we keep a certain percentage of our revenue every month and say we must devote this to advertising. Every business that is not advertising, you are not ready to make a great impact. You're not ready to grow your business. You're just like a beautiful woman who is beautiful and nobody knows about it. You're in the dark, nobody knows about you. You must come out and tell the whole world, oh, I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful. You must make noise about your business. You must say, oh, here am I have this solution, and I'm the best to offer this solution. You must pump in money to advertising. You must shout and say, we are here, we're ready to serve you. We have so product. Look, your product might not be the best, but if you have the attitude of constant improvement, you will get there. So we have this situation where a client sent our PPE to NCDC, and they looked at it and they say, oh, we love your initiatives. We love your courage. But you know what? This might work in certain areas, but it doesn't really work 100% for us. So we had NCDC come to us and say, look, sit down. This is the World Health Organization recognized PPE. This is how it is structured. Can you move from what you're doing to this kind of PPE? And so they gave us a lot of support. They supported us. They gave us a lot of advice. And before you knew it, we graduated from something that we started that was not so perfect to a very perfect PPE. So we have organizations in Nigeria, all over the country, all over the world, who are calling to say, look, we love your PPE. Can you give this to us? We even had the clients. I'll give you an example of the clients where they bought a PPE from us. They wanted to supply to a multinational organization. And so they brought our PPE locally made here in Nigeria. And then the organization also brought a foreign made PPE that they had procured somewhere. And they put ours and the foreign one side by side. Do you know they picked ours? They picked Beyond Clothing PPE, locally made here in Nigeria, locally made here in Aba. I don't think the Chinese, I don't think the Americans, I don't think all of these people are better than us. I think we can all do the same thing if we put our minds to it. And then if we're ready to channel resources into it. So I come to resources. Some people look at it and say, oh, I don't have the money to do big time business. I don't have the money, I need financing. How are you going to get the finance? How? You're going to get the finance, like in our own case, where you're solving problem and you're making people to know that you're solving this problem. And let me tell you one great opportunity today. A lot of Nigerians are sad that we depend on China, we depend on the entire world to supply us everything. So there's this opportunity where people are looking for stakeholders here in Nigeria, people who are producing something, and they are ready to put their money and say, look, we want to support you. We want you to grow. We want you to do made in Nigerian products. So within this period, we had a lot of support. Like an example, I've never had any interaction with Bank of Industry. So they saw us, they saw our video because we're making so much noise, and they called and they say, look, we want to support your business. What do you need to grow this business? We need to grow your business. This is the kind of business we want to grow. We had a call from Afro-Exim Bank, and they called us all the way from Egypt to say, look, guy, we love what you're doing. We want to support your business. We want your business to grow. if we as a country must grow, it is businesses like you, small businesses like you, that will grow the economy of this country. We had another call from, I think, some venture capitalists out of this country who called to say, we want to put money in your business. We want this business. When you do the right thing, when you can you hear me?
There's a
Hello?
little, there's a little bit break in transmission. I think. Okay.
Can you hear me?
That was amazing and very, very.
But I can hear you now.
Okay, good. That was amazing, and that was very passionate. And in all that he said, I think he's just been able to cap all that we've been discussing today. He did mention stakeholder. He identified NCDC as a stakeholder that he needed to work with. He also did mention the PR part of it, whereby I needed to bring myself out into the public, to announce to the world. He also mentioned the risk, where he spoke about, I'm not taking your money. Wait, let me first of all have my products, because there's risk. You take people's money, tomorrow your reputation would be tarnished. Now, this is an amazing thing. And there are two things he mentioned that I really love. He said in crisis, there's danger and there's opportunity. We tend to see the danger first and overlook the opportunity. But if we look deeper and we sit down and take a breather, we would definitely see the opportunity. Isn't this amazing? I mean, he has a video on his PP. I'm sure it's somewhere on YouTube, because I saw it was circulated during the crisis. Now, this man has grown. He was a lawyer by training. From his school, he went to the bar, he did his NYSC, but he now nurtured his passion. And I told you, there's something underlining that I'm going to let out later. It depends on who your mentor are. It depends on who trains you. And one of our panelists here was a teacher to him. Can we all guess? Okay, I can see virtual hands. I'm sure you all have your hands raised. No other than Peter Bankole. And I'm sure they had a very good time while he was coaching and mentoring him and teaching him also. So over back to you, Mr. Bankole. So you've worked with somebody who has today transformed to become a success, because I want to say he's a success. He's done something that we did not know we could do in Nigeria. So so in setting up a business, what are the 10 most, the top must-haves that a business should put in place at the minimum to forestall against financial, compliance, operational, reputational risks, and even pandemics, as the case of Prince Arthur?
Okay, let me start by saying, while the video was breaking, we were also sharing amongst our 100,000 SMEs on the SME toolkit. So we were very proud of him. In fact, there was this saying that this is Prince Arthur, our son, in whom we are well pleased. And we shared that very well during the crisis. But coming back to your question, people always ask me, what are the key things? Some will say the top 12, some will say top 10, like you have said. Some will call it the 10 commandments. But today, I have coined it into an acronym that is easier to remember. As academics, we always like to build framework around everything. So I'm going to put this into the chat. It's called dress right. And that's all you need to know. So those are 10 letter words. So it's called dress right. And I'm going to run through that very quickly. Dress, the D is for digitalizing your processes. And so, like you have heard, in a crisis period or pandemic, when people were locked down, 13% of the people that thrived, 13% of those that thrived, and we did a survey, thrived because they had digitalized their processes. So that's one takeaway we must all have as small businesses. The second one, which is the R, and I'm sure you all can guess, it's risk mitigation. Right from day one, you must plan to mitigate all types of risk, at least within your level, whether it is risk against your goods that you are moving and so on and so forth. One thing that we always overlook, and especially small businesses, is paying attention to the E, which is ethics, business ethics. You can win in the short run, but in the long run, you cannot win if you do not practice ethics in business. This is very critical, all right? And so from day one, make sure you practice business. Now, coming to the real ones, the double S. The first S is you must separate yourself from your business. Separate yourself from the business. So you were talking about accounting, this and that. That's one of the things we taught Prince Otto. And I'm glad that he has enabled all of that in his business. So that whether you are in Lagos, Aba, or wherever, your business can run without you. You are not and cannot continue to be the gravity, the center of gravity of your business, okay? The second S is save. Save for the rainy day. I'm glad it's raining at this time, but most of the businesses got busted in the first 2 months because they did not have enough savings to go on. And so we always advise, please save while you are making money. And you could build different scenarios, whether it is 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year, but save for the rainy day. So that is the dress part of the dress right. Now, the right, the R, of course, is regulatory compliance. It's absolutely important, and they will come after you. You cannot grow if you do not comply as far as regulation is concerned. So if you are doing things around drugs or food, you must have NAFDAC registration for you to grow. If it is tax, you must pay your tax right. So regulatory compliance is very, very key. Now, this one is where we change the game. You must innovate constantly. That was what Prince Otto has done. It was into garments, but then there were assets that he could not use, whether it is the machine or even his rents and so on. And he thought very quickly, how can I use this opportunity that the problems present for me to innovate around it so that I can solve people's problem. And as you have seen, when you solve people's problem, even the funding will run after you. That is the critical. So innovation, in fact, the way we always teach them, innovate or die. Any business that does not innovate will die. So innovate or die. And then the G, maybe you can guess, is around governance. And I'm glad, Cyril mentioned that at the beginning. So corporate governance is from day one. Even you cannot afford to have a board, you must have board of advisors. And we teach them all of this. As a fellow of Corporate Governance Society of Nigeria, I am so passionate around corporate governance. So whether you are big, small, it separates you. And when you want to access funding in future, they look at that corporate governance. Of course, the H, as you can guess, is HR. HR is key to success. You can't do it alone. You cannot do it alone. But your human resource must be carefully curated, properly managed, and well-trained, so that everybody will not say to you, yes, sir, yes, ma, yes, sir, yes, ma. No, they will be able to say, what do you think about this? Can we look at this? You build them up so that you can together challenge each other. So you need serious, HR management. And the final one, which again, one way or the other, we have spoken about it, is together we can go far. Together we can go far. What does that mean? You need to be part of an ecosystem. You need to be part of an ecosystem. Author is part of an ecosystem. A lot of other people I could mention that are not here, they're part of the ecosystem. As soon as I announced that, oh, May I not thought we are going to be on this program together, you can see the vibration across the entire ecosystem. They say, anywhere you go, you will always find an EDC alum. And that's what it's all about. Just like anywhere you go, you find MTN. Okay, so we are hopefully following after you. So to cap it again, it's about dressing right. Dress right, and you should be okay. Thank you, Amina.
Amazing stuff, sir. I mean, these are things you get when you go to places like the Lagos Business School or other business schools. Dress right is an acronym. And I thought when he said dress right, it actually meant dressing right, but it's an acronym. So this is, thank you very much for that, sir. And by the way, dear participants, I want to mention that it was a coincidence that we have Prince Bankole, Prince Arthur and Mr. Bankole on this show. It wasn't that we asked them to come to, no, we paired them and then we found out that he was actually his teacher and his mentor along the way. Now that is fantastic. And you've also been able to touch on every aspect, the dress right. If there's anything you take out of here, is the dress right, because it speaks into all the aspects that we're speaking into today. So very quickly, before we go into the question and answer session, now we've heard the good part of Arthur, how he's been able to metamorphosize and also bounce back into and venture into a business that he did not even plan into. Now, very quickly, Nkechi, for those businesses that are very vulnerable to the changes that have happened or unexpected threats, and maybe they have even suffered reputation damage, how can they navigate or minimize the impact of this negative publicity on their business?
Thank you very much, Amina. I want to assure you that I'm thoroughly enjoying myself, and I want to thank MTN for this initiative. Bad publicity is something that can destroy a company, no matter how big. And I'm happy that Ms. Toben Okibo highlighted that fact, that whether you are small or big is the same thing that happens to a big company also happens to a small company. Unfortunately, small companies don't ever think of having a public relations department, or they don't even think about publicity. Some of them say it's very expensive, but they don't even bother about it. You know, disaster can happen to any company, and when it does, it can take you out of business. Poor reputation, you can spend 1,000,000 years building a reputation, and just one tiny second, it crashes just because of one silly mistake, you're gone. So there are things that you must do. During COVID, a lot of companies had a lot of backlashes, all right? Especially those of them that didn't respond immediately, and it was a dent on their reputation. But having said that, what must we do when you have bad publicity? I'm going to restrict myself to publicity. I'll try as much as possible not to go into reputation management, branding, and all that, but simply establish the source and the why of the story is very important. What is the source of bad publicity? Remember, I told you that everybody is watching today. Look at what is happening in SARS. You thought people were not watching. People are watching. And social media is helping everyone to generate content and their views, because when you're on social media, nobody can control you. All right. So you are not going to see anybody to give brown envelope to cover up your acts. So establish the source of this bad publicity and know why. Once you have done that, go back to review the story thoroughly. I mean, be honest to yourself. Most times, some of those things written, you have done it. Sometimes you haven't, but then review the story. Once you have reviewed the story, then you can start planning how you want to manage this negative press. One of the things we tell you is just like managing your crisis as well. Is crisis part of the crisis? Okay. So once you've done that, engage relevant stakeholders to communicate the facts. It is important to communicate the facts. One of those stakeholders could also be those people that wrote the negative press. Then your internal stakeholders and your external stakeholders. Remember, we talked about prioritizing your stakeholders and also mapping them. That will help you to know the kind of messaging that you're going to do at this time. So, but have at the back of your mind that you must always state the facts. One of the, I don't know if any of you have ever read about the Tylenol crisis. The thing that helped them in that crisis was facts. They came out with the truth. And it's not about, oh, my oga at the top, somebody, I cannot tell you so and so. So know the extent to which you can talk, the level of disclosure that you can have. Sorry, my light just went off, but it's okay. It's a bit dark in here until they bring lights. I'm sure you can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. But
can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Engage your relevant stakeholders, like I said, then develop a relationship with media. You can do this on your own if you think that a public relations agency is going to be very expensive. But let me tell you about PR agencies. Sometimes it's not what you think. I have a lot of small companies coming to me, and we work with your budget. If your budget is 100,000 naira, even if it's 1 naira, let the PR agency know this is how much I can go. All right. Some of them can even offer you advice for free. I'm very passionate about what I do. So I'm not saying I'm not advertising, but I can tell you for free that some agencies are out there. They are ready to help you. So you must develop a relationship with the media. And this relationship you are developing with the media is not to give brand envelopes. No, it's to give an opportunity for yourself and your company to always let them know what you're doing and to be the news. Don't become the news. Don't let your company become the news. You be the news. How do you become the news? By being proactive and generating positive sentiments about your company. And you can only do this if you are engaging. Talk about what your company is doing. Get into the community and talk about what you offer. Let people know about you, about your products, about your services. Let them know what you offer. Get your business into press in a very positive manner. Don't run away. The press, like we say, is your friend. They're not like the police anyway. They are your friend. Let them know your part. Then turn existing customers into brand ambassadors. Don't forget that part of your existing customers are also part of your stakeholders. Turn them into your brand ambassadors. Somebody just talked about food. I remember there was, during this COVID, a young lady started cooking. I became one of the ambassadors. Oh, did you know so person does so and so? And I talked to one person and said, oh, is it that same lady? But she's not good as so. I said, but she's no longer there. And that is why, because she's been innovating, she's moved on to another thing and she's good at it. And this is now speaking well for her company. So recognize your stakeholders, recognize the one that you can turn into your ambassadors and use them as much as possible. Of course, it's not every customer that can do this, but the ones that can, use them. Then start a course. Most small companies, that you don't do anything to give back to society. You don't do anything that will generate positive content for your society, for your businesses. All right. When you start a course, be a thought leader in that area. Get involved in community service. While you do that, you are generating up-end media for yourself. when you do something that you're generating positive content, the media will be looking for you, because there is something you have that could help their own business, because it's all a symbiotic relationship. If you have good content, media will use it, and then you are publicized in a very good light. Arthur just told you, it is why you are innovating, it is why you are generating content, it is why you are doing positive things in the society, then you are able to earn good media for your company. Your internal communication is very important.
Yeah.
Let me just round up with this. Your internal communication is very, very important. We always ignore our internal communication. Be sensitive about it. Let them know, because they are the ones. Word of mouth is very important. They are the ones that will go out there and say things either positive or negative about you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nkechi. I mean, that was that was good points. Publicity is very key. You sell yourself, the social media. Now, some of the SMEs have not experienced any major surprises when it comes to risk and find it difficult to invest. Some may say, why should I invest in the resources? My business is going on well. Now, Cyril, what would be your advice to SMEs who think like this?
Okay, thank you, Amina. I think it's important to emphasize again that when you're talking about risk, it's actually protecting your business. So even if you haven't seen the immediate results of that investment, you're investing in your future. So I wouldn't want SMEs to have a very narrow view of what the company's returns are. Your returns actually will be threatened if you do not manage risk appropriately. I've had to answer some questions, in the chat question and answer chat box, where somebody actually asked that question. So just see this as an investment for the future of your business. You may not see immediate value, but when the shocks come, as this pandemic has happened, you will definitely reap the benefits of that investment. So that's the way I want to put it with respect to an investment in managing risk. So there are key issues that have been thrown up. I happen to have read a paper, by the World Economic Forum, where they talked about how businesses can build resilience, and this is focused completely around risk management. So in order to avoid surprises, you as a leader, for instance, must have the right attitude to risk. So if you're looking at your business, you must model that behavior that you are taking risk. If you do not do that, don't expect your direct reports or other colleagues in the organization to do that. You must lead by example, by modeling risk behavior. You must set up the entire organization to be resilient by putting in place structures, that make sure that people do things in an orderly manner. You must put in place structures, for instance, that protects your revenue, that protects, your finances, that protects your operations. So if you do all this, the value, though not tangible, is not what you can touch, but definitely your profit and loss will show. That is where the value comes in. So I would like our SMEs to actually think of risk as an investment that they are making to protect their businesses. We have a lot of companies that are, we've seen what Arthur is doing. If he wasn't well positioned, he wouldn't have been able to seize that opportunity during this pandemic. So as this crisis happened, some people will, definitely smile to the bank, while others who are not so prepared will, I'm sure Arthur has people in this industry who are not able to do what he's doing, for instance. So if he hadn't set up a structure that enables him to recognize these opportunities, and like he said very rightly, we shouldn't see risk as only in the negative sense. So risk, the flip side is opportunity. And if you don't take that opportunity, you've missed it. So if you cannot recognize that and plan for it, definitely that will pass you. So I would like to have, SMEs to think So in that regards, thank you.
Thank you very much, Cyril. That was very interesting. And quickly, I'll move over to Tobe. I have a question for you. So, as an SME, COVID has drastically changed how customers interact with the organizations in terms of expectations and engagement and feedback. Now, what advice would you give to the SMEs to proactively engage the level of engagements and promote increased level of transparency in their business dealings with their customers?
Thank you very much, Amina. You know, there's always there's something that happens that people think that if they communicate more, they become more vulnerable and they reveal secrets, and then maybe it will be disadvantageous to them. But that is actually a wrong precept, especially when you're talking to your stakeholders, and in this case, customers as stakeholders, because if they understand a lot more what is going on with you, they will be able to work with you to solve problems as main problems arise. And I think undergirding the statements, the interventions by Nkechi, this is what comes through. So in that pandemic environment, I'm sorry we're using the pandemic because that's what's on ground, but in a crisis environment, regardless of what the crisis is, where you are able to communicate strategically with your stakeholders or your customers as a particular segment of your stakeholders, you find out they understand you a little bit more. And where, in listening to Prince Arthur, for example, Arthur Uche speak, for example, you will notice that for him to access the opportunity that was available in the danger that was surrounding him, what he needed to know was look at his environment and understand what his customers or likely customers might be able to do. You will also notice, because I liked that he was using very practical examples, you will also notice that at some point he went and sat down with a customer, and in this case, the customer was NCDC, to say, are we doing it right? What can we do? And even as a big organization, you will find out that we do it. We ourselves do Vox Pops. We want to find out how our customers feel about us and what it is we can do differently. So that constant communication is extremely useful if we are going to have a situation where businesses can be nimble. In introducing this program, Omasa quoted Darwin when she said that it's really about which organism is able to adapt the most. So where this takes us to is, what is your ability to adapt? Some people, some businesses will meet crisis and they will shrink. Some businesses will see the crisis, assess the opportunities, access it rightly, and they will grow. We are using Zoom today instead of sitting down in one hotel and doing this. And this is because somebody thought of the fact that we might need to communicate remotely. Okay, so in my view, what we should keep doing is to keep monitoring that environment. Yes, of course, like Cyril has said, like Peter has said, we need to put the structures in place, okay? But what I'm saying is that taking into consideration that a lot of people listening to us do not have those structures, one, are in the process of building those structures, my message is do not be disheartened if the structures does not exist. Work towards it, build your business, and then put the structures in place. In talking with Uche earlier, I think this was yesterday or the day before, he did talk to Peter and he said, oh, Peter, I want to tell you that those things you thought of, we are doing it now. We are paying our taxes, we have our structures, we have. What I took away from that statement was that it wasn't always like that. He has started the business, gone through the iteration, for want of a better word, process, has built the business and has now put the structure under it. My thinking is, as you move forward, please, please, please communicate as much as possible, read as much as possible. That was also interesting because if you notice, he was looking at the internet. Here at MTN, we are constantly studying the environment, looking at what might necessarily impact us, either negatively or what opportunities that exist. And everybody should do that. In my other life, I had a colleague who every morning starts his day by sitting down and reading the newspapers. Now, we don't need to buy physical newspapers. We can just go through them online. Okay, in looking at this, how does it help us? It helps us understand how our stakeholders are thinking, and it gives us an opportunity to work with our own employers and our immediate stakeholders to think through things and then take it to the next level. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tobe. I mean, you guys have been amazing. It's been a very, very interesting session. I mean, I wish you could just see the question and answers. We still have over 500 participants at the moment, and we have over 210 questions. Now we've reached a point where the interaction would begin. We're going to answer some of the questions that we've seen posted. So I'm going to throw it to the panelists in no particular order. And we're also going to try during the session to answer some of those questions that you posted. So in order to accommodate as many questions as we can, once we throw a question, I'll ask that the panelists maybe just spend 2 minutes so that we can take more questions. So I'm going to start with you, Prince Arthur. I have a question from Izegua Izefbae. Apologies if I don't mention your names or if I don't pronounce it properly. I apologize for that. How do small businesses deal with crisis caused by stakeholders? By this, I mean when suppliers or contractors collect payment for a job and don't deliver, stop picking your calls and deliberately avoid you. Prince Arthur, how do you deal with such a situation?
I think every business has its own challenges one way or the other. When you have suppliers who you've paid and they are not supplying and you don't know what to do about it, my concept to solving my problem is that think outside the box. Think out of the box. That's a crisis. That's a major crisis. What do? I'll give you this example. Today we have this crisis where there's scarcity of dollars in Nigeria. A lot of businesses have collapsed as a result of that. I have a lot of friends who used to import, like Aba is a hub of importation of fabrics, but they can't go to China anymore. They can't import anymore because they can't afford the extreme costs of dollar. That is affecting us as a business. So there are products we used to deal on that are extremely very expensive today and not readily available. So we've asked ourselves, how do we solve this? Here's how we solved it. We looked at it and we say, if dollar is very difficult to obtain, if dollar is very high, what it means is that it's affecting everybody. It's affecting every other businesses. Meaning that there are also people who are looking for locally made goods that are affordable. Meaning that as imported goods become very expensive, producing in Nigeria becomes cheaper. So now we've identified certain products and we've identified industries or garment factories that we can partner with. And we now want to start buying from them. So we have a lot of opportunity on ground because Nigeria seems not to have managed our dollar pricing very well. And it's a crisis, is destroying businesses, but we're seeing opportunities. So every day we get calls from people who cannot afford imported items to say, can you produce for us? So they come with their samples. For instance, we got a contractor who used to import scrubs from China, from abroad, and he came to us and said, look, I can't afford to keep supplying imported items. Can you produce this for me at this price? And we looked at it, we did our cost analysis, and we realized it's possible. And they gave us the job. So now we have more work to do because dollar is expensive. While people are losing businesses as a result of that, we are getting more empowered because it's difficult to obtain dollars. So for me, my answer is simple. Once you have a crisis, the question is, how do you respond to it? It's not what happens to you in life that matters. It's how you react to that situation. How do you think out of the box to solve your problem? And in the midst of that crisis, profit out of that challenges. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Arthur, in a nutshell, what you're saying is think out of the box, seize the opportunity, and then create a niche for yourself. Don't become enslaved by other people because the opportunity is there. That's a very good way to manage a business. So coming back to you, Mr. Cyril, I have a question from Zika Onwe, who says, thank you, Mr. Cyril, for elucidating on the subject of risk mitigation. Please, as a newbie, I would like to know how newbie nonprofit can mitigate the risk involved in meeting up with demand challenge during this pandemic crisis.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I think I actually responded to that question, but just to say that, I mean, it appears that he actually has a good problem. So my understanding of that question is that the demand for his product, outstrips the supply for that product. So my response to that would be that he should scale up. I mean, look for ways of scaling up to take opportunities, for the shortfall of what you're supplying. And there are several ways you can scale up. I mean, if you've set up your structures very well, we've heard of people who have been supported by Bank of Industry, for instance. If you can go and make a strong case, you could get funding, and then you actually at a single digit rate, and then you can actually take the opportunities that exist that you're not able to meet at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So it still boils down to having the right structure. Nkechi, over to you. I have a question, Infinix Hot 5. I think that's a nickname. How do I manage perception or prospective customers who often tend to patronize bigger and blue chip companies than SMEs in time of crisis, or even generally?
I think Arthur's story has answered that question. So it's not about being big, it's about what the offerings that you have. It's about your ability to innovate. You've heard that cliche, innovate or die. It's all over. So it's not about you being small, it's about your offering. And it's about your packaging. How do you package what you are selling? How do you package yourself? How are you perceived? What is your brand like? All right. So some people think that they cannot compete with big companies. They can. Look at the story of Arthur. From obscurity, he's all over the place. And there were companies, there are bigger companies who didn't have this idea. I'm sure some bigger companies are asking, how did we miss that? How come a company in Aba has just come and is taking all the PPE businesses? So that is how it is. So you can compete favorably if, one, you have a product that is people need, that people want. Two, that you are able to package your product in a way that the consumer it will influence consumer to make a decision to buy. Okay? And then perception is key. How do you position yourself? Even you, the owner of business, how are you positioning yourself? All these things, they come together to impact on your business. So it's not like most small businesses do. They say, oh, I'm not MTN, I'm not this, mine is a small business. Yes, it's a small business that you are looking forward to make sure that it will grow, bring profits and all that. So you must also look into the areas that these big businesses are doing. Okay, how is your reputation? How are you perceived? It's different from the way what you say you are. So integrity comes to place, compliance comes to place, and the quality of your product comes to place. Your packaging comes to place. All these things make a strong reputation for you.
Absolutely. It's not about the size, but it's about your niche market and what you can do with it. No company started big. Everyone grew into what it is today. So that's thank you very much for that. Mr. Bankole, I have a question for you. And the question goes, can you please, it's from Benjamin Ohunusi. And he's asking that if you could please shed more light on corporate governance for a small business like ours. Please be specific as much as possible. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Corporate governance, the way small businesses used to think about it, is that it's only for big businesses. It is not true. It's around being accountable to people and also ensuring that things are done properly. So for instance, from day one, if you say to yourself, I cannot afford a board of directors, but you can have advisors. So we call them advisory board. And I sit on a number of advisory boards. Usually they don't get paid, but there are people that maybe like or understand the kind of business that you do. And they want to see things happen or change in that particular space. So they will gladly come and offer their time to be able to help you to think through some of the things that you will be doing. Don't forget, entrepreneurship venturing, it's a very lonely space. And so you need people that understand and know what you want to do to share those thoughts and concepts together. That's one. Two, corporate governance also means that you cannot on your own just take unilateral decisions on anything and everything. As I speak to you today, I still have, and I'm on a number. So before, yes, you may be the owner of your business, but the corporate governance will say there is a limit to what you can do on your own. So maybe even in terms of spending, you cannot just take your checkbook and just sign everything out on your own. It could mean that somebody else must co-sign with you, look at what you want to do, and then basically be like your conscience in that process. I have established EDC in the last 18 years. As I speak to you today, I don't sign checks that goes to me. It's part of corporate governance. I don't even approve anything that comes to me. And yet I am the CEO of that particular center. So it's a mindset that helps you to behave and to defer to a collective reasoning. And usually, if what you are saying is right, you will need to test it with other people reasoning together with you. So that way, you are not just doing things because you think it is right. You have to test it, and other people will say you are correct, and then we all sign off on it. So it's basically putting a framework around you and ensuring that you are not doing things out of your whims and caprices. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Nkechi, I have a follow-up question based on what you just said. So if you can just please just briefly explain. Okay, where is the question now? Just hang. Okay. The CEO of Peace and Love Multi-Concepts is asking, what do you mean by separate yourself from the business?
Separating yourself from the business helps you to remove your sentiments. For instance, you have your corporate goals, you have your governance as it is, like Bankole is explaining. So based on that governance, you have set up some structures that aligns with your corporate governance. And so separating yourself from that means separating your emotions, separating your sentiments, so that whatever you do aligns with your policies, it aligns with your corporate goals, it aligns with ethical things or the ethics of the business. So that is what I mean, because all of us, we have our sentiments. The first thing you want to ask yourself, is it right? Does it align with my corporate goals? Does it align with our ethical values, the corporate values that we have in this business? That's what I mean.
Okay, thank you very much. And I hope that is very clear. So my next question would be to Tobe. And the question is from Rosetta Iziavwe. And she's asking, for businesses, how can they implement business structures and crisis management at little cost, since they are not financially buoyant?
That's an interesting question. And now let me say this again. when these tips are being suggested by the panelists, there's a tendency for people to think, like Bankole said, that I'm not a big MTN, I'm not that, so therefore I cannot do. But he also did give simple examples of what governance can be, and this is a mindset thing. Not every business is in a situation or at a stage in its life where it can put structures, employ the people that they need to run those structures, okay? So a lot of businesses, especially SMEs in Nigeria, are in a place where they can't really afford those kind of structures. And so the question is understandable. Now, one of the things you will notice if you look at our environment, and I'm going to, being an Igbo man, I'm going to use an Igbo example. When you look at what Igbo people do in places like Alaba and all that, you find out that what happens is there's a kind of mentorship, there's a kind of schooling that goes on. There's a kind of apprenticeship that people need to go through to be able to know that this is what we need to do. It is not always that we can, how should I put this? We must not always wait until we have all the structures. Sometimes what we need is simply the knowledge of what we need to do before we get to where we will put the structures that we need. If we have a governance mindset, if we know, like the basic Igbo trader will tell you, he knows that he separates himself from the business. You can see somebody who is a multi-billionaire when you look at his net worth, his business, what the business can do, and all that. But you find out that it's a joke. It's almost a cliche. You find out that he's riding a motorcycle. He doesn't own a brand new Mercedes-Benz S-Class, even though he can afford it. You find out that he has a mindset that has made him build a structure to say, this is my business. The challenge we have in that construct is that 2 times out of 3, those businesses remain at a certain level and they never scale. If you have the right mindset and you understand governance and you can separate yourself from the business, what will happen is there are things you will not do, because if you do it, it will be detrimental to your business. That's a form of structure. It is as the business grows that you say, okay, right now, we've gotten to the level where I think I need to employ somebody who will be focused on managing my employees. I think I need to get somebody in place who will do this risk management, because as the CEO owner, you've been doing it all along yourself because that is your mindset. You start looking at the quality of the employees that you have. You start looking at all those kinds of things. So as a startup, you must not always, all the structures that Cyril is talking about and Peter is talking about and all that, you might not always afford to put them in place, but it will be you yourself who is running the business, who has to have the mindset and to give yourself that corporate governance, that governance to separate yourself and know that this is my business. It goes to things as low as knowing I will pay myself 50,000 a month, even though my business is earning 500,000 in profit. I will do this, I will do that. It is as you keep doing those things that you look at yourself, grow, and then start putting the structures behind. As somebody once said, you know, people say you shouldn't build castles in the skies. But somebody said that's exactly where you need to build those castles. Now put the foundation under them. So the thing there is to go ahead and do the business. And as the business grows, put the structures that you need. If I listened to Ato correctly, this was how he did it. Thank you very much.
I love that, Toby. Build castles in the sky. The sky is not the ceiling. Absolutely. All of us can transform and take our business to different heights. And I'm sure if we listen or we've read the stories of some of these big organizations that we talk about, they all have a story to tell. An author is somebody who is a typical example that he was able to break all odds and all unimaginable. I never thought in Nigeria we could actually have a PPE. PPE are those jumpsuits, and those things were imported from outside the country. Now, coming back to you, author, Quickly, there's a question from Ralph Erifil, and he's asking, how do you manage business expectation in rapid growing retail outlet when more of your employees are strangers outside your family setting? That's a typical Nigerian dilemma. So how do you deal with that?
Can you repeat the question again?
Okay. How do you manage your business expansion? For instance, you started with 2 employees. Today you have about 140. When you have rapid growing retail outlets, and most of the employees, of course, are strangers. You've gone to Lagos. You must have employed strangers outside your family setting, not family members, that is.
Okay, my answer is simple. It's called structure. Banking, my teacher taught me that 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I used to do everything, virtually everything. Like Toby said, maybe what you need to do at this time is to learn. Not to, maybe your business is at the point where you don't need to start implementing those structures, but you need to understand, what do you need? What knowledge do you need at this point? So 10 years ago, I was opportune to be at Enterprise Development Center to understand what structure really means. At that time, I had no idea how to structure my business. Having learned that, and I came back and said, how do I start implementing this? Number one, do not build your business on trust. Do not use trust to build your business. It will collapse. Do not think that because you have family members, they are out there for your best interest. Look for qualified people, people that you can rebook, people that you can sack, people that you can command, and start building your structure. Observe all the advice you get from mentors. So if you don't have the opportunity to go to Enterprise Development Center, you don't have the opportunity to go to Lagos Business Schools, there are mentors around. There are people who have built such kind of businesses. You are probably in a retail business, the man who asked this question. So look for people who have successfully done it. There are certain brands today that are busy employing people that they have no idea who they are. But they choose right, they manage right, they partner with human resource people who understand such businesses better, and they employ right. I can assure you that if your mindset is to build a business that does not involve your family members and you want to structure, you can achieve it. So this was what we did, assuming I still have the time to talk, to structure our business. Can I continue?
Absolutely. Hello, structure is the bedrock of any business survival. And a typical example, we all know the McDonald's chain is a restaurant. It started like a small hamburger mini kiosk run by 2 brothers. And we know the story how a businessman, Ray Kroc, came in and became a partner. And today, McDonald's is in almost every country of the continent, or is on all the continents, not every country, but all the continents of the world. So having the right structure, that is exactly what is required. Thank you very much. Now I'll move to the next speaker for Peter, for Mr. Bankole. I have a question from Morenike, and she's talking about digitalization of businesses. It sounds great, but in her category of business, household cleaning range of products, customers or prospects find it really difficult to pay for delivery while they order online. Would rather walk into a store to get similar products. What is your advice?
You know, I will tell you that behavior is changing. And yes, at the beginning, it is true. And I can use myself as an example. I used to laugh at my daughter, my kids generally, who are online, people. Everything is online. I would rather go to the shops and do a few things. But during the pandemic, I had no choice. I ventured into it. And today, 6 months down the road, I can tell you, I am like 75, 80% an online person. So I was forced to move online. And there are many of your customers that are going to be like that. It is also true that when you do the mathematics, you will say to yourself, you know what, it worth it. For instance, yes, they do charge delivery, But how much is the delivery? The trouble of me going to the restaurant, picking the thing, having to drive there, fuel, all kinds of things. I just look at it and said, extra 1,000, extra 2,000, it does make a big difference. And honestly, if those people are not willing, then they are not your customer. That is, so you need to begin to zeroize your customer segment. But one thing I would tell you is that data is gold. As at today, because of the going online as a result of the crisis we've had, people are willing to give you their phone numbers. They are willing to give you their addresses. So you can begin to map where your customers truly are, and you can begin to reach them very quickly. We've never had it so good. And so take advantage of that. But honestly speaking, 80% of people are moving online today, and they will pay for it. Trust me.
Absolutely. I mean, it all comes back to your niche market. What is your niche market? Now, there are times you go to ShopRite, for instance, and we all know ShopRite is blessed with customers, and the queue is just so long at times. But you see people going in there to pick just one item, a bottle of Coke. For them, it's the experience. They travel, they go in, they belong in, they socializing. So that's not a niche. That's not a niche customer. We must provide something. People like me would be a very good target, by the way, because I hate going to the market, as I mentioned earlier. Now, over to you, my brother Cyril. There's a question that has come in asking from Paul Esopofo Oriade, and he's saying, educate us more on taxes and insurance.
Okay, thank you, Amina. I think a lot has been said with respect to compliance. For taxes, the tax man doesn't like, government doesn't like leakages in terms of, what is due to it with respect to taxes. I'm also aware that earlier in the year, the president signed the 2020 Finance Act into law. That has brought some reprieve to SMEs, I believe, some that, their gross income is less than 25 million will have to pay no taxes. I want all our SMEs in this, program to go check out that Finance Act. They have layered the tax law such that, they give cushion to those who are just starting, like the startups that have not grossed up to 25 million naira per annum in terms of taxes, absolutely pay no taxes at all. Then 25 to 50 million, there's a percentage, and 50 to 100 million and beyond, as opposed to before when we used to have, a flat tax rate of almost 30% applied to all companies. So that's an important development that will bring a lot of development, in the SME community. In terms of taxes, you have to comply. I mean, whatever, rate of tax that applies to your SME category, please be serious with your taxes. It's one area that can actually, pull you down as a business if you're not complying. Because when the government comes to conduct, the FIRS or, whatever agency comes to conduct an audit, and you have found one thing, the penalties are usually too high. So it's better to avoid that. Get a small, accountant or somebody to help you tidy up your books and pay your taxes as and when due. It also helps when you want to, for instance, approach a bank for a loan or go and transact business with, some big organizations. We deal with a lot of SMEs in MTN, and one of the key requirements we ask you is a tax clearance certificate. You have to have that. If you do not pay your taxes, we can't do business with you. So it's very important to, take the issue of taxes very seriously. A question was also asked earlier on insurance. I mean, people have asked questions in that forum as to how, if you lose your business to fire hazard, for instance, how do you get back up? As a people, I don't think we take insurance very seriously in this country, but it is something that is actually the backbone of any business. You have to insure everything. Abroad, people even insure their phones, handsets that you buy, they insure it. If it gets stolen, too bad, you go back to your insurance, they give you a new one. So I will advise our SMEs to take insurance very seriously. It is a very important risk management tool that helps you get back. So you wake up and you find out that, the whole section of the market is burnt. We've seen markets burnt down in Balogun, in Aba, Onitsha, and other places like that. If you have insured that shop, even if you have 100 million naira there, you've insured it and you paid your premium, the insurance company is going to write you a check. A lot of us are very skeptical about this. But I have personally, received a check from the insurance when my car got, damaged in an accident, for instance, and they pay huge volumes in claims. So please, as a small business, insure your business. Okay, I cannot overemphasize this. It's very important. You may, be looking at the premium you pay as substantial, but it's actually not. It saves you. Insure your business and pay your taxes. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cyril. Yes, as good citizens of this great country of ours, we need to comply and pay our taxes. And insurance also plays a very, very vital role in our business growth. So thank you all to the panelist members. Of course, we're wrapping up. I would like to ask the audience to please take the poll, which is still running. But before we go, it's been a very, very exciting 2 hours. I mean, I wish we could have this for the whole day. The energy levels are still up and I could go on and on and on. And I love the questions that are coming in. But before we go, I would like to take another round for final words. Just in 1 minute, what would you like to tell our audience who have been with us? You people have been amazing and you've been very fantastic. So let me start with my brother, Tobe. What final words would you have for our audience?
Thank you very much. And I'm privileged to have been part of this. My advice is this, Rome wasn't built in a day. Please don't conceptualize your business by thinking that you want to, within a month, become, become even Arthur. If you look at Arthur, he went through a process. Building a business is not easy. Those of you that are involved in doing it, I wish you the best. And just know, like building anything, you have to put a foundation and then layer on the structures. Like I said before, you can dream your business being as big as Microsoft. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But then put the foundations under it. Do the work you require to get to where you need to be. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Rome was not built in a day. And then I had a friend who once said to me that when they tried to build Pisa, look at what happened to the tower. So thank you very much. Quickly over to you, Nkechi. Any final word?
Yes, of course. I'm very delighted to be here. Thank you. This is a very, very good experience for me. I will ask our SMEs to remember always that, like Toby said, Rome was not built in a day, but while building your Rome, remember that you are greatest ambassador. Your reputation matters. The only way you can be what you want to be is to do the things that you have to do to become what you have to be. In other words, live your brand, protect your brand. All right, you are your greatest ambassador. You are the brand itself. A lot of people think that the CEO does not matter when you are building a brand. The CEO is the first brand master. So, and then go for counseling, ask questions, have a relationship with an agency that could help you. Forget about money. Money is not everything. There are some agencies that are passionate enough to help you out, especially at this time of need. And keep learning, keep updating. That is the whole idea about business. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We need to always reinvent ourselves. We need to innovate and we need to change as time changes. Because the only thing they taught us in school that is constant is change. Yeah. Cyril, any final word from a risk perspective? We don't want the IRS coming to our doorstep. So what final word do you have for us?
Okay. Thank you, Amina. I think for me, I just want to encourage all our SME organizations to be very serious with governance. We've heard all that we've heard today. That is a solid structure that you set up to, for the growth of your business. Pay attention to your governance structure. Keep modeling the right behavior. I mean, people will do what they see you do. So if you're modeling the right behavior, people will copy from that. Your employees, your other colleagues will do so. Comply with laws and regulations. Don't allow fines to bring down your business. We talked about NAFDAC, we talked about the tax authorities, we talked. Please keep a close eye, maintain a compliance risk register. Have somebody identify all the things that you need to comply with and comply. You are protecting your business by doing so. Above all, please be ethical in whatever you do. Be ethical. That models the right behavior and is a solid foundation for every other thing that follows. I believe that if we do all this, we can look forward into the future with, profits multiplying. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ethics is very, very important. It's part of the values that we cherish and we treasure. So now I'm in a conflicting mode. Should I ask Arthur to go first or should I ask Bankole to go first?
Please ask Arthur to go first.
Okay, Arthur. So we'll listen to the teacher at the end. So Arthur, final words.
I like that. My teacher should round up. Maybe he will correct me in the process. So thank you for the opportunity, Banky. Now, I want to encourage Nigerians, particularly graduates who are seeking for employment and you can't find, and you're so frustrated. I listen to people who are demonstrating about SARS and all that. They're telling you, look, it's not even about SARS. It's about our future. It's about how difficult things have become in this country. Look, your education is not a waste. The entire world is changing. It's not just Nigeria. Entrepreneurship happens to be the key. I read law. I probably would have been working somewhere as a legal practitioner, and probably I would have employed 2 people, 3 people to work for me. Because I chose the path of entrepreneurship, the lonely and difficult path, and I employ almost 140 people. Every month, I pay salaries that most legal offices cannot even pay, because I chose the path of entrepreneurship. And it is not an easy path. It's a difficult path. So you must be patient. Whatever we have today, we didn't build today. We built 14 years running. Be focused. If you've chosen that this is the path you want to go, be focused. Go and learn from the masters. Become an apprentice somewhere. Take it easy. Take it one step at a time. And keep implementing. As you're focused, resources will come, help will come your way, banks will come your way, individual structures will come. One day, you'll become a business that people will look up to and say, yes, this business is a structure or is a part of a business that can grow our economy in this country. So I congratulate every participant and I say, thank you for participating and thank you for choosing the path of entrepreneurship.
Thank you very much, Arthur. I love the passion. Passion can take you far. That is what he said, because he ventured into what his passion is all about. And remember, Rome wasn't built in a day, and look at what happened to the Pisa Tower. Okay, now over to you, Mr. Bankole.
Okay, I'm going to make it very short since we've had a lot today. In over 2 decades, or almost 2 decades of working with small businesses, I have seen many, and I mean the word many, transformed from being small to extremely big. But one thing I will say as my final word is think big. Think really big, but start small. But more importantly, dress right. So I'm going to put that in the chat box so that you don't forget. Think big, start small, and dress right. Thank you very much for the opportunity of being part of this panel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bankole, and thank you to all the panelists. I mean, I'm sure everybody would agree with me that it's been an amazing 2 hours listening to people's experience, listening to people's core competencies, and giving us advice. If this was a physical session, we could have seen, I'm sure we would have seen the excitement in the room, but it's virtual and I can still feel the excitement, and I could still go on for another 2 hours if time was permitted me. Dress Right, I think that is a very, very good acronym we have taken out from here. It's a very good learning. I would like to thank each and every one who has made up time today to join us in this program. And this next week's, I have just a couple of announcements to make. We have a masterclass session next week on October 21st precisely. And the theme is Yellow Clinic. Here we'll be answering some broad range of questions you found from the beginning of Revv. So get your questions ready, please. The link will be sent by email and SMS to all those who have registered. But just to mention it, is www.mtnbusiness.com.ng/Revv with a double V program as one word. Remember, those who have registered for the Revv program and have attended the master classes stand a chance to be showcased as our business crush of the day. Wow. Where we showcase the SME across all our social media. There's also the opportunity to be named as one of the Yellow 200 who will benefit from productivity support, market access, advisory services, among others. The Yellow Clinic is a session no one wants to miss. All our MTN executives will be available to answer your questions. So that brings us to the end of today's session. And I would like to thank our panelists, starting with Mr. Bankole, Nkechi Ali Balogun, Prince Arthur Uche, our own Cyril Ilok, and my brother, Toby Chukwu Okigbe, for spending time today with us. And also to Amasan, the introductory, she seemed to have gone somewhere, and all the program organizers. So for me, it's to say thank you all very much, and thank you for joining. And please stay tuned with the MTN Revv program. Goodbye. God bless you all, and God bless Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amina. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amina. God bless you.
Thank you, Amina, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.